The last gas station on Route 26 had warned Eli Harper that the mountains were preparing for an early winter. He had waved off the old attendant's concern, topped off the department truck, and followed the narrow road that wound upward through bare oaks and mist. 50 miles later, the fuel gauge still read half, yet the engine sputtered, coughed, and died on a stretch of gravel that overlooked nothing but a ravine and a steep incline of black spruce. And then he heard. Eli cursed at the hiss of cooling metal, opened the hood, and found every line and wire intact. The battery retained its charge. It was as though a hand had simply pinched shut the flow of power. When he tried the radio, he received only a hum, the pitch of a struck tuning fork. He kicked the door shut, pulled his jacket tight, and consulted the topographic plat that had brought him here. 5 miles southwest lay Grief Hollow, an abandoned mining town. He was to survey for soil contamination, confirm that the corporation's liability ended with the last shaft closure, and leave before nightfall. 5 miles was nothing to an Appalachian sun that vanished behind ridges by 4:30. He slung his pack, switched on his GPS tracker, and started down the logging path that descended toward the valley. Halfway, the device blinked red, then blank. Batteries new, circuits good, yet dead. Eli moved faster, boots sinking into layers of wet leaves. He reached a saddle where the first roofs of Grief Hollow sagged beneath clusters of crows. The town, chartered in 1889, had once housed 2,000 miners, their families, and the company that owned their lungs. In 1912, a methane blast sealed the number 3 shaft, killing 61 men. By 1930, the seams were exhausted, the company dissolved, and the place surrendered to moss and silence. Wind pushed Eli into what had been Main Street. Window panes without glass reflected nothing but skeletal frames. Signs hung by one nail: post office, mercantile, chapel. On a hill above, a brick building larger than the rest gripped the earth like a mausoleum. The boarding house, he remembered from the archive photographs, had been called the Widow's Rest. A coal black iron fence encircled it, the gate wide as though someone expected company. Beyond lay the mouth of number 3, a dark cleft ribboned by rusted tracks. The sky dimmed. Eli checked his watch. 3:48 p.m. A quarter hour and daylight would bleed out. He chose the boarding house, both for height, its cupola might grant cell reception, and for shelter. The iron gate shrieked at his touch. Inside the courtyard, weeds sprouted between cracked flagstones. The door yielded under one shove. He stepped into a foyer where portraits glowered down a corridor. The wallpaper peeled in damp rolls the color of bruises. He set his pack on a table, clicked on his flashlight, and climbed the central stair, each riser sighing. On the landing, a standing mirror occupied a carved walnut frame. The silvering had scarcely tarnished. Eli saw himself, clearly tall, fair hair stuck to his forehead, jacket streaked with road dust, yet everything behind him in the glass was wrong. The corridor lights were lit, though the bulbs overhead were shattered. Cigar smoke curled where air lay still, and directly behind his reflected shoulder stood a coal cart heavy with ore, poised at the top of the stairs as if pulled by invisible mules. He turned. Rotten boards and mud. When he faced the mirror again, the cart had begun to roll. His double lifted a hand, mouth shaping a warning. The cart accelerated. A second before impact, the image froze like a lantern slide. Eli, crushed, chest caved, eyes wide in shock. The glass shimmered, then returned to an ordinary reflection. The cart, the smoke, the impossible light all gone. He staggered back, boot heel punching through a board. Splinters raked his calf. He bled, but pain anchored him. Hallucination, he muttered. Bad air. Mines leaked methane long after abandonment, and low oxygen could toy with perception. He inhaled no scent but dust and wet timber. His pulse hammered. A second mirror, this one above a sideboard, waited at the hall's end. He approached, despite every instinct. Again, the reflection altered. Midnight sky visible through the windows. Snow falling. Eli was on the landing. Jacket gone. hands black with soot. He leaned over the banister, as if listening to something below. Then the same coal cart, now dented and corroded, burst from a side doorway, struck him, and sent his body vaulting through the air. It ended with his head against the newel post, neck at an impossible angle. The scene froze, and the mirror became ordinary. Eli backed away until his shoulders hit plaster. 2 mirrors. Identical moment of death. Same cart. A premonition? The boarding house might be playing host to old stories, feeding them to anyone foolish enough to watch. He remembered a childhood fable. Look in a mirror at midnight and see the face of the devil. This was crueler. See your own corpse. He located a narrow servant's stair that climbed to the cupola. The door at the top was padlocked. Inside, if the floor plan held, would be the master's suite. Copper wires once routed electricity from a dynamo at the mine to this house first. Luxury for the overseers. Eli unfolded his multi-tool, wedged it under the rusted hasp, and pried. The lock fell. The suite smelled of cold iron. Velvet drapes sagged across tall windows, and everywhere leaning against furniture, hanging between door frames, mirrors of many shapes. He counted 11 in the main room, more in the dressing closet. Some were streaked, but most flawless. Moonlight, pale and early, pressed through broken shutters. One mirror alone faced outward toward the mountains, its gilded frame coiled with cherubs dulled by grime. Eli approached, braced. The glass lit. He stood at the foot of the number 3 shaft. Snow, thick as ashes, whirled. The disused hoist trembled on fraying cable. A bell somewhere rang once, twice. He heard his own ragged breathing. Then from the tunnel rolled the coal cart, bearing no ore but a cargo of human shapes miners, gray, limbless, mouths frozen in silence. The cart slid across ice, sparks flying from rusted wheels. Eli tried to leap aside. His foot caught in debris. The cart struck. His body folded, limbs pinned between iron edge and earth, skull fracturing like shale. Blood spread black on snow. The scene locked. His scream echoed in the suite. With both hands he shoved the gilded frame. Glass cracked, but held. He swung his flashlight, smashing the surface. Splinters of mirror rained, tinkling like small bells. He panted, half expecting the pieces to crawl back together. They lay still. Victory short-lived. Every other mirror in the room brightened. Thousands of Ellas died dozen ways, yet always by the cart. Crushed against banister, crushed against earth, crushed against his own truck in the snowy road outside the town. The variance was only the location. The time on the broken pocket watch each Eli wore read 12:07 a.m., less than 8 hours away. He dragged a blanket from a moth-eaten chest, wrapped a sleeve around his hand, and shattered 2 more mirrors. The wrapper rang a louder emotion. Shattered 2 more mirrors. When he lifted his arm again, the rest had gone dark. He leaned back, heartbeat slowing. The house settled, boards popping with temperature change. Wind moaned in the chimney. Eli needed fuel, wheels, distance. He descended to the foyer, intending to hike back to the truck before dark fully pinned him. The front door whispered shut on its own. The iron latch clicked. He pulled. It resisted like fused bone. The side windows had been boarded from outside. He grabbed a dining chair and drove it against glass. The chair splintered, window unscarred. Something in the house, or the town beyond, had no intention of letting him leave. He retreated to the dining room. An enormous mirror covered one wall, painted with swags at the corners. In its depth, the coal cart sat idle, as if waiting for a signal. Eli raised his flashlight like a cudgel, then paused. If these mirrors showed fixed death knot, an appointment at 12:07, perhaps their vision might be hacked. What would happen if he altered the source? Move the cart? Jam its wheels? Remove himself from its path? Tools, the supply shed must be near the mine entrance. He fetched his headlamp, tightened his boots. Twilight had bled to violet. He slid through the kitchen, exited the scullery door into the yard. The air smelled of damp iron and distant rot. Snowflakes, the first of the season, drifted aimlessly. The mine's timber supports rose like ribs of a fossil. Tracks emerged, curved toward a low-roofed shed. Inside, he found a workbench half buried in straw. A sledgehammer leaned against wall studs. A rusted pry bar lay across a coil of chain. He tested the bar, still strong. He gathered wedges of shale and a lantern, liquid with stale kerosene. Near the shed, an ore cart rested on the tracks. The same model, same corroded seams as in the mirrors. He tried to push it. Wheels resisted. He jammed shale beneath both axles and looped the chain through spokes, securing it to a timber post. He wedged the pry bar between wheel and rail. Satisfied, he stepped back. "Not tonight," he said aloud, voice brave in the starlight. 1207 will come and go, the mountain answered with a noise like distant thunder. Wind ripped along the slope, carrying with it a smell of burning hair. Snow turned from white to cinder gray, falling faster. He glanced at his watch. 9:15. Nearly 3 hours until the fatal minute. He hurried back to the boarding house, intending to barricade himself in the cupola, as far from the cart as possible. Inside, the foyer mirrors had changed. No longer did they show Eli's death. They displayed the ore cart stationary, chained tight around its wheels, wedges in place. Then, one by one, the wedges popped free in the reflections. The chain links, bent like soft lead, fell away. The cart rolled forward. He sprinted to the landing mirror. In it, the cart was already at the base of the stairs, splinters of chain clattering behind. The watch in his reflected hand still read the dreaded time, but beneath the ivory face, the seconds moved backward. 11:58, 11:57, as if time itself had accelerated to meet the prophecy. Eli's chest squeezed. He ran for the servants' stair, taking risers 2 at a time. At the suite door he paused, pried up floorboards and shoved wardrobes to block the hallway. In the closet he found a kerosene lamp and matches. If the cart could not be stopped, perhaps the house could be. Fire might break the bond between reflection and flesh. 11:42. He soaked drapes in kerosene, trailed them across the floor, and built a pile of antique linen. The wind outside rose to a shriek. Shutters banged like battering rams. 11:58. He lit the first cloth. Flame blossomed, feeding on age-dry velvet. Smoke churned against the ceiling. Eli coughed, drew a wet bandana across his mouth. Mirrors in the suite awoke. Every pane showed the hallway outside, door trembling under impact, the cart battering it. Sparks flew, hinges warped. 11:59, he grabbed the gilded frame he had cracked earlier and flung it face down atop the flame. Glass bursting, smoke turned a noxious silver, shapes twisting inside like drowned men. A roar came from the corridor, a metallic screech. The door split, boards flew. The cart barreled in, though no tracks existed here, wheels cutting grooves in parquet. The reflection had become real. Eli dived behind the foremoster bed. Fire licked at the cart's wheels, yet it rushed on, ignoring physics. The miners inside raised eyeless faces. Their mouths opened in a harmony of silent pleading that stopped Eli's heart more surely than any collision. He rolled beneath the bed as the cart slammed. Wood cried. Canopy collapsed. His jacket caught a nail, yanked him half free. He kicked, tore cloth, scrambled to the shattered window. Outside, the roof sloped down to a veranda. Smoke blinded him. He broke the remaining panes with his elbow and clambered out. Snow hissed against the burning house, melting to steam. 12:01. The cart lurched after him, forcing itself through an aperture never meant for it. Brick crumbled. Wheel axles sparked on stone sill. Eli ran along the slanted shingles, footing treacherous with ash and frost. At the corner, the cupola's peaked roof met the main eave. Below, a 20-foot drop to the orchard. He swung over the gutter, legs dangling, and let go. Snow cushioned the fall. Breath punched from lungs. He stumbled upright. The mine mouth squatted 100 yards downhill, yellow lantern still burning near the chained his cart. But above, inside the burning boarding house, the spectral twin had turned, seeking him. 1203 glides toward the mine. Snow thickened. A storm conjured in seconds. Trees bowed like penitents. He glimpsed, through branches, the fiery silhouette of the cart bursting from a second-floor wall, riding rails of air, landing on the porch roof with a shriek of tortured metal. It skidded down shingles, gained the yard, and pursued, each wheel chuging ruts through snow. At the shed, Eli seized the lantern, smashed its globe, doused chain and wedges with kerosene. He lit a match. Flame raced along the metal, engulfing the bound cart. It groaned, steel contracting in heat, but stayed put. He turned to face the phantom cart thundering across the yard. 1205. He ran perpendicular, drawing it away from the tracks he had sabotaged. Past the chapel, past the post office where rot poured like tar through windows. The spectral cart matched every turn, wheels spitting sparks, snow boiled to vapor in its wake. At the crossroads stood the town's coal tipple, a skeletal tower once used to load train cars. Its slanted conveyor belt rose 30 feet. The wood looked rotten enough to fail under weight. Eli charged up the incline. Boards cracked but held. The cart followed, slower now, incline fighting its unnatural momentum. Halfway up, Eli leapt aside onto a catwalk, then grabbed a lever that once controlled the coal chute. The rusty bar refused. He hurled his weight against it, shoulder popping. The lever gave, releasing the chute's trapdoor. Right beneath the cart, boards fell. The cart plunged into darkness, striking bottom with a roar of splintering oak. 12'6", silence, wind, snow. Eli's breath plumed. The catwalk shuddered, posts tilted. He clambered down the opposite ladder as the entire tipple sagged, beams unraveling like ribs kicked in. He reached ground as the tower collapsed, burying the cart beneath tons of timber. His watch ticked. 1207. The world held. No invisible hand crushed him. The night, though burning and broken in places, remained real. Eli exhaled, knees buckling. He dared glance toward the boarding house. Fire illuminated shattered walls, but no second cart rolled in the yard. He limped back to the mine entrance. The physical cart still burned, chain glowing red, wedges charred but intact. He stared at the tied wheels, knowing that if they ever turned, the prophecy might resurrect. He kicked snow over the flames, smothered them, then shoveled drifts against the iron until only a plume of steam rose. Beyond the ridge, dawn-stained clouds the color of raw meat. Eli followed the main road out of town, refusing to look in panes of broken trucks, hubcaps, puddles that could reflect. Hours later, he reached the stalled department vehicle. He opened the door. The interior light blinked on. Engine started, first try. In the rearview mirror, he expected blood, coal, death. He saw only his own exhausted eyes rimmed with soot. Yet he reached forward, flipped the mirror up, and drove without it. Behind him, fog swallowed the road, a single tolling bell fading with every mile.